Welcome to Basic Brewing Video. I'm James Spencer.
I'm Steve Wilkes.
You know, we get a comment a lot of times, you guys never seem to brew anything that you don't like. Well,
that's not true.
You just don't see the things that we don't like.
That's right.
We don't show them to you. But every now and then, we'll have a brew that is challenging in one way or the other. Something goes wrong technically, and it's all about, what you do when things go wrong to try to rescue the thing, to pull back on the yoke and, try not to go crashing into the ground on the thing. So first of all, I should have waited until I got this book before I attempted this brew or this thing. This is How to Make Hard Seltzer by our friend Chris Colby. And it's got tons of good information that I should have known before I attempted this.
The big book of Seltzer.
A little song, a little dance, a little seltzer down your pants. And there's also an interview with Chris Colby on Basic Brewing Radio, about how to make hard seltzer, and I talk in detail about this project because it's supposed to be simple. You look at things on the internet, and hard seltzer essentially is just water, sugar, and then yeast and stuff to make the yeast happy, and then you have kind of like diluted ethanol, and then you put some flavor in there. That's basically it. At least that's the technique that we used to make this. So let me turn the page in my brewer's logbook, which is now full, by the way. It's time for me to get another brewer's logbook because there are 50 batches in this book. Anyway. So what? Little shameless plug. So what I did was, I brought 4.5 gallons or 17 liters, and into that I put 4 pounds or 1.8 kilograms of dextrose or corn sugar, and then I boiled that for 10 minutes, and chilled it down to pitching temperature. Transferred it into the fermenter, and added Lalvin EC 1118 and some yeast nutrient. I added 5 teaspoons of DAP, or diammonium phosphate. And I shook it up to aerate it, started out at the gravity of 1035. So here's where it gets complicated. I pitched all the ingredients, I pitched the yeast, and then the next day there wasn't any visible activity in the airlock. And I'm used to using Imperial organic yeast where, by bedtime it's like blah, 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 blah. So what I did was I swirled the glass carboy and some CO2 came out of solution. So I said, okay, we've got some activity here. It's just very slow. So I kept doing that, and about like a week later, I took a gravity reading, and it was still at 1035 where I started. So I said, oh no, what's going on? So I talked to a Chris Colby, and he recommended more yeast and a better yeast nutrient, and maybe use some oxygen in there. So what I did was I went to your store, Steve, and I got two more packets of this yeast, and then I got this yeast energizer.
Right.
Which got it's got diammonium phosphate, but it also has spring cell and magnesium sulfate. So it's got more food for the yeast than just the DAP.
Right.
And after I pitched those two packets of extra yeast and the more food, then it did start fermenting. And then a few days later, it got down to 1003. Which is not where I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be, 1.00 or lower. But I was like, I tasted it, it tasted good, and I said, heck with it, I'll keg it and flavor it. So I flavored it with this, I have visual aids today, this natural mango flavoring, and this is a 4 fluid ounce container, and I used a little over half of it just to taste in the keg. And then force carbonated it. So 4.2% alcohol and 141 calories. So So that's a lesson that, with beer, most of the time you don't need to worry about giving nutrients to the yeast, because in the wort there's lots of stuff for the yeast to eat. In mead and wine, sometimes you do have to give some extra nutrients. But even in mead, there seems like there's a margin of error where, you can still not be perfect in how you feed the yeast and it'll still work. With this stuff, it's just water and sugar and nothing else. So you really have to take care of the yeast. So all that just to taste. Cheers, Steve. But see,
Cheers.
what do you think?
It's not bad. Wow. It has more mouthfeel than I expected.
Huh.
Maybe that's because it's at 10:03 instead
Right.
of 0.998 or something like that.
Right.
The mango's nice. It doesn't taste artificial to me. I thought it might, but then again, you were judicious, which is the way to use that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it's a good product. I sell it, but I always warn people not to just dump the whole thing in. You gotta do it to taste, and just like oregano, you don't want to put too much in, or you get like Andy Griffith's spaghetti
Or Aunt Bee's pickles.
or Aunt Bee's pickles. Really, it's very pleasant. Serve this at a party, I think it would be a hit.
Yeah. I mean, it's not my thing. And even Chris Colby, who wrote the book on it, was like calling it fizzy belchy water or whatever, boozy belchy water.
It's different though. I mean, it's probably not something that I'm going to personally do a whole lot with. Although I might make it just once, at least once, to do it. But I'd be more inclined personally at my house to have some club soda and a shot of vodka, and you're pretty much the same way. But this is different. This has more mouthfeel. It's a little more viscous and luscious, for lack of a better word. And I don't know what the alcohol content is, and I probably missed it. But I don't know. This is really nice, and it would be fun to do at a party or for a party. It'd give you some bragging rights, It's like, which is way more braggable than here, glug glug, some diet squirt and vodka. I mean,
Yeah, and
so
this may be our Halloween show. I forgot to dress up or anything, but this may be our Halloween show. This is more like zombie hard seltzer because it came back from the dead.
What was that drink from the night? Zima.
Oh, yeah. This is a little.
But that was a barley. I think that was a barley-based drink. I don't know. I'm not a Zima expert.
There are two different types of hard seltzer, and we get into the conversation with Chris. One is just sugar and water, and the other has some malt in it and actually some hops that they then filter out.
Oh,
so this approach is a lot easier, especially for a home brewer. But I don't know. I enjoy. I will probably do it again, mainly because I got hung up the first time, and I want to figure out what I did wrong. So I want next time I'm going to pitch extra yeast. I'm going to pitch both yeast nutrient and yeast energizer. Give the yeast plenty of stuff to eat, and then I'm going to dig out my old oxygen tank thingy. And actually give the hard seltzer some oxygen rather than just shaking, which is usually okay, with beers and a lot of time meads.
Well, I can tell you that when I make meads, any mead, but particularly strong meads, meaning 13, 14, 15%, I always feed it the yeast energizer as well as just straight DAP. I do it a little differently than a lot of folks that like to do staggered additions over a period of some days, if not weeks. I tend to put in everything at once. I've never had a bad experience doing that, and so if it works, don't fix it, kind of thing. But the last really, truly big fermentation that I did was a 5-gallon batch of apple wine using 5 gallons of organic apple juice and 8 pounds of corn sugar.
Oh my.
Yeah, it's big, and it still tastes. It's still running a little hot, and it's almost a year old, but that's okay. And it's settling down now, and it's really good. It's really very good. The fermentation went smooth as silk, but I gave it quite a good dose of the Energizer, so that it had that magnesium sulfate and the spring cell and the DAP in there, and it just fermented like a charm. I had no trouble with it at all. So, in the for what it's worth category, yeah.
Yeah. Take care of your yeast, especially when they ain't got nothing to eat in this stuff.
Yep.
I don't know. You might want to start with a small batch if you do this, to test out.
Make sure it's something you want.
Yeah, well, yeah, and to test your procedure and make sure that that it works before you go all in. Although this is not an expensive, 5 gallons of this is not expensive.
Well, you know what? The other, I have another thought too, and I've not done this, but it makes sense to me. I sell a product. I sell distilling yeast as well, and there are some. There's different brands of this, but the brand I sell. It's just called turbo yeast, and it's made for a sugar wash. It's made to ferment sugar.
Right.
So it's very bulky. It has a lot of different additives, meaning a lot of vitamins and adjuncts with the yeast itself. So it's absolutely made to ferment lots of sugar up to a high alcohol content, meaning a 18 to 20% yield in terms of alcohol. I bet you it would work great to make seltzer with. I bet it would work very well. Yeah. It's specifically designed by the manufacturer for that kind of fermentation. So that would be a thing to try. Maybe if I do this, that's what I should do. Just give it a shot.
Yeah.
So something to think about.
Yeah.
And but it's a good exercise, and it's actually really pleasant to drink. I mean, if you're having a pool party, knock it out.
There you go.
Yeah.
Pleasant to drink.
Pleasant to drink. That's about as damning as I get.
There you go. All right. Happy fall, everybody. We'll talk to you next time. Cheers.
Yeah.
Come and visit us online. At basicbrewing.com, you can find archive lists of our audio and video podcasts on home brewing. You can also find our DVDs and our brewer's logbook, where you can track and log up to 50 batches of beer. If you're in Fayetteville, Arkansas, stop by Steve's Brew Shop or find him online at stevesbrewshop.com.
Pleasant to drink.
It ain't awful.
It ain't